Today I'm refuting Noah Garcia's claim that ISIS poses no real threat to the United States. His two supporting facts were that ISIS is not an existential threat to the United States and that the amount of people killed by other things in the US are more threatening when compared to ISIS. First of all, I just kind of wanted to counterclaim his main argument with a quote from Barack Obama's final State of the Union address. The quote says that both Al-Qaeda and now ISIS pose a direct threat to our people because in today's world, even a handful of terrorists who place no value on human life, including their own, can do a lot of damage. I thought this quote kind of just countered the claim that terrorism was definitely relevant. And going back to his first point that ISIS is not an existential threat to the United States, the first point is the same as the claim that ISIS poses no real threat to the United States. And he said that Lance, Jada, and Obama stated that an existential threat is something that is so big it will take over our way of living, economy, and government. However, the outline said differently that Lance Jada said ISIS cannot destroy us, invade us, or wreck our economy. Then I looked up Lance Jada online, and I can't find him anywhere. He doesn't exist. So that piece of evidence was irrelevant. I searched several search engines, including Google Scholar, the library database, just regular Google, and I can't find him and I can't find his quotes, and it was not on the works cited as well, so it led me to believe that the source was false. Also, I just think terrorism is an existential threat because the definition of an existential threat is something that is a threat to our entire existence. And with 9/11, the country really changed our whole way of life, which if ISIS were to do something as severe as that, we would do so as well. His second piece of evidence was that ISIS is already shrinking and losing power. This evidence was an assertion because there was no source provided for the evidence. The source he did have was that in 2015, ISIS has been shrinking and losing power, but there was no source for it. His third supporting evidence was that terrorist attacks will happen in the US regardless of what terrorist groups they are. He used an example in 2014 where a man attacked several police officers with a hatchet. His proof was that ISIS did not tell the man to do it, however, the man was inspired by ISIS, which led me to believe that it's still relevant to ISIS and that ISIS is still a threat to our country. His second supporting claim was that the amount of people killed by other things in the US are more threatening when compared to ISIS. I didn't think this piece of evidence was really relevant in supporting the case because it's not a matter of people dying, it's a matter of the manner that they're dying. The first piece of evidence was that 12,000 homicide deaths are caused by guns annually. There was no evidence for this source on the works cited page, and although even if it is a true fact, it does not correlate to ISIS being a threat to the United States because people are going to die from guns, as well as his second point that 30,000 people die from obesity in America. According to your source on www.vdhr.org, you said that 30,000 people die from obesity in the United States, but the number was actually 300,000 people die from the United States when I went to the website, so the numbers were presented inaccurately, and again, do not really correlate to ISIS because obesity is a whole other problem going on. And the last piece of evidence that was less than 100 deaths have been caused in ISIS because been caused by ISIS since 2005. There was no source for this evidence, leading me to believe it was false and inaccurate, and I also wanted to counterclaim it, talking about the 14 people that died in San Bernardino in 2015, and then in 2016, according to CNN, in the Florida nightclub shooting, 49 people were killed. So I don't think the numbers are necessarily relevant. If 49 people and then 14 people are dying, it's still clear that ISIS is a threat, and that's about it.
All right, a lot of your arguments concern challenging the evidence that the advocate used, either because it's not very clearly cited, we don't have a source, there's inconsistency in the information that's being presented, and those are all reasonable presses to make on those points, and they may to some degree undermine the argument that the advocate's presenting. But even acknowledging that that might be true, for instance, let's assume for a second that a couple of the numbers are right. For example, a relatively small number of people who were killed, or that ISIS has less territory than it had a couple years before. I still think that there is a need to develop some good counterclaims on this point. And I thought at the beginning that you started to do that, suggesting that ISIS and Al-Qaeda do present significant threats to our way of life, and that there are potential consequences down the road if we fail to deal with those. I think that this is one of those places where you need to have a claim of future fact about, and again, considering hypothetical, if we were not to continue to take it seriously, what would the consequence be? Their recruiting would be easier for them to do. They would expand. I mean, the fact that they have gotten smaller in terms of the amount of territory they occupy, you know why that is true? Yeah, because we've been bombing the crap out of them. So the idea that, we don't perceive it as a threat. We certainly perceive it as enough threat to engage militarily with them and try to reduce that. If we don't take it as a threat, what's the likelihood that we would hold them back? And I think that that's kind of a dilemma that the advocate has got built into their argument that you need to point out. I thought you did the right thing when you're pressing on the evidence everywhere and say, look, there's no source on this. We don't really know what this means or where this comes from. That's reasonable. But let's assume for a second that they were able to present the source. What's your backup? What's your answer to those particular points? And you need to have, I think, another answer. You need another level of response, not just the one that you're giving. I think you give a pretty good response on that level, but I think a secondary level is probably called for in this situation. All right, thank you.